Hi, welcome to Portage County Matters. I'm Patty Dreier, Portage County Executive. Thank you for being with us here today. It's a really cool show today. I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. I have a guest who is a famous guy all over the county. It's our new sheriff, Sheriff Mike Lukas. And so I'm going to look forward to helping you get to know him even better, and then also talking about a lot of the initiatives that he is taking as part of his first steps in office. Right before that, we've got one news note, though, that is very important, and I wanted to make sure that we put that out to everybody here today. At the May 19th County Board meeting, the County Board passed a resolution establishing that the location for a new county government building shall be in the downtown location. What that means for all of you who have been watching this show or tuning in every now and then is that the next stages of physical space planning in Portage County government, such as planning for a new jail, will focus on the downtown location. There's a lot of homework to be done. There are concepts to continue to develop and so on. We've got a lot of input and decision making to happen yet. But anyway, future construction projects would need additional approval and appropriations of funds. There are lots of months ahead of us, but we wanted you to know right away that the county board now is zeroed in on a location for this next level of planning homework. So stay tuned. Be sure to contact my office if you would like to ask for more information, and I'll keep you informed as we go along. Next month, I could just say right away on the Portage County Matters show, I'd like to highlight our physical facilities through the eyes of our facilities director, who knows more about which projects are before us as potential choices, what we can renovate, what would that mean, what really doesn't make sense to renovate, and so on. So we'll try to help everybody drill down a little deeper into the facilities picture in our next month's show. Anyway, now let's, without further ado, get to my guest, Sheriff Lukas. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
So, how is it going since your election last November, and you've been in office since early January, right?
Yeah, well, the election was long. Since January, I think I've come to a real understanding of county government, the group of people that are dedicated to this county. I mean, from the county board to the townships to you to every department head. I mean, I've never been this involved. And I think it was really scary for the first 2 months because I was kind of maybe behind the 8 ball a little bit from other people. So
you had your other job, and when you were focusing on your job, it didn't mean that you always had that wider view all the time. And I think that wider view is what you might be talking about.
Right. Not only the wider view, but I guess the whole process of how things take place. You know, frustrating for me at first because you want to do things and have it go quicker, where you don't have to go through so many committees and so many meetings. But now there's an understanding on how the process works and how to maybe speed it up a little bit.
So how about your greatest joy so far?
I think just, you know, getting some of my things that I was really adamant about doing up and rolling. I think the jail population to me was a big deal because I know a lot of these people. You know, being in the community for 20 years, you know a lot of these that are decent people, made poor choices on one day, and can be trusted. And I felt that there's a better way that we can do things in regards to just, you know, incarcerating people and having them lose their jobs, lose their families, lose their house. You know, something that we can do to give them that second chance. So that's why I was so adamant about the home monitoring, you know, getting a position that we can actually do a full-time position for home monitoring, you know, getting new equipment. Our equipment prior to this was archaic. You had to use landlines, and it wasn't reliable. So if we had the old equipment, I don't know if I'd want to do sending people out there, you know, and having that trust that they would be, you know, following the rules. With the new equipment, the GPS technology and the SoberLink things where they blow in, have facial recognition, I feel very secure when we send people out that they're abiding by the rules. We have somebody that can check on them, and we're giving them that second chance.
So really, when we talk about some of the, well, most important, I think, most landmark kinds of changes that you've made since you've been in office. I would say that the electronic monitoring issue is one of them, Sheriff. And so when we're telling folks about this, they may not know where we really came from, maybe how many people were on a release from jail with other accountability in the public, and then how many are on now. And let's just talk a little bit more about that whole program.
Sure. You know, for the past several years, you know, I've been evaluating the home monitoring program. We had a 0.3 hour position, somebody that would actually monitor, hook people up, and send them out in the community. To actually run it the way it should be, that would be about 3 to 4 people. And to be honest, that's about what we were doing.
And what did it mean to check up on or to monitor people in that older system, just so folks can understand when we relate what the new system is?
There would be a record in regards to if they were by their home base, but it wouldn't track where they were in regards to locations. It would track when they blew into the unit. It had to be a base unit at their house. If you told them that you had to have a breath sample for alcohol, but you couldn't take that out of your home, go to your business, go to your work, and have a set test. The new equipment, you can actually program in, you can do it anytime during the day and say, you have 15 minutes to blow into this unit. So they have a time period where they can get it out of their purse, get it out of their car, because the unit is only probably 6 inches tall by 2 inches wide. It looks like almost like a bigger cell phone. People don't really know. They can go into the bathroom. They can be private. But when they blow into this unit, it actually takes a picture, captures a picture of their face, and it has points facial recognition. So you can't have somebody, you know, blow into this unit to fudge that.
And then there's that ankle brace. Just talk, because that's all part of it, right, with the GPS system.
Correct.
That identifies locations, and even when they're out of a cell coverage or something like that, it's able to register a location as soon as that individual comes right back into a coverage area again, and they get through one of the holes in the
You know, through Portage County,
network.
we did a testing of all this new equipment before I decided, because back years ago they said they tested it and it wasn't reliable. I tested it. I brought the bracelets around. Our corrections officers wore the bracelets. We did it for a week. We didn't find dead spots in the county. But what it does is it actually pings off of GPS satellites onto their bracelet, and it's usually, you can set it between a couple seconds to a minute, and then it downloads through a program, through our monitoring person that has an iPad. Now, we don't do active tracking. So active tracking is something where somebody would be monitoring that screen all the time, seeing where they're going.
Yep.
What we do is what's called a passive tracking. So after 3-4 hours, we look at their tracking, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And
they went where, like, to work and home, where they were authorized to go or something like that?
But we set up parameters on our computer so that if they don't, we get an alert. But we still double check in regards to that. So it's not considered an active tracking like the state has them for prison inmates that are on high risk, that they send out in the community, sexual offenders and items like that. They send those people out, and they actively track those day in and day out. I mean, they have somebody watching where they're at.
Interesting.
So, but, you know, and then there's costs. There's costs in regards to the equipment, our old equipment. So actually, I just got done working with the company that we're leasing these units with. We're able to do it by a low cost by leasing, you know, both the ankle bracelet and the SoberLink, the breath unit, to make it cost effective that we can charge the same amount that we do for if somebody's in jail. So we do charge people when they're incarcerated in our jail $20 a day. That's the same what we'd be doing for sending somebody out on home monitoring.
And so, all right, so we talked about the 0.3 position way back in the old day, the last few years, related to home monitoring. And those systems, if I recall correctly, required a landline at your home, and many people have cell phones, and so it wasn't the most practical situation to go install a landline and then have this monitor at that particular time, right? Isn't that how it went?
Right, and it was very time consuming because our person would have to go into their house, set everything up, and set them up at their residence, check the parameters, have them, you know, making sure everything works. This is way different. We can set them up right in our office. They have a little portable beacon that it actually saves battery time if they come close to it. But they no longer have to go in and do that with the landline set up and do all that that time-consuming. We still do the home checks to make sure that you know, if there's no alcohol involved, that there's no you know, weapons supposed to be in the house. All these kind of things we double check in regards to that. But it's no longer where you have to go there for the 2 hours to set this person up and do all that work.
So talk about the staff and how many people are on sobrieters, or how many you plan in the future versus what was. Kind of help folks understand.
Last year, looking at the totals, you know, we were on an average of between 4 and 6. I purposely, beginning of this year, ramped the program up to show what we can do instantly in regards to the program. So prior to asking for approval for another position or anything, I wanted to see what our program could actually do. On the old equipment? On the old equipment.
Yes.
This has had nothing to do with the new equipment.
Okay.
We were sending out on average between 20 and 25. And that's not feasible for the staff we had, but I wanted to show what we could do. You know, we did that for a month just to say, hey, this is what we can do. So once we did that, I brought it to the county board and for asking for a position. Brought the cost structure in regards to how much it costs per person, time, you know, monitoring and everything like that. And we figured out that with the position, if we asked for a full-time position for home monitoring, with addition to that 0.3 position, we can, on average, go from between 25 to 40 people that we could feel very secure sending out in regards to the home monitoring. So that is my vision is, it's not going to do that overnight.
Right.
Because I have to set up some new policy procedures in regards to who we're going to, you know, the Justice Coalition and the Jail Overcrowding Committee has been great in regards to setting guidelines, because no sheriff wants to stick their neck out on the line by themselves. We need, as a community, to come up with some solutions to our jail overcrowding and who would be eligible, and how we're going to, you know, deal with violations.
Kind of like the rubric, right?
So it's been a great learning experience. You know, the judges have been great. They're looking at, you know, the alternative sentencings. But, you know, I want to make sure people truly understand that home monitoring is not for people that are truly bad. You know, if somebody is truly a bad person, they're not going to be out on home monitoring in the society. These are people that take a test. There's a score that's associated with this test. We evaluate their chance of offending again, their chance of, you know, succeeding. All these things are taken into effect before that we consider them for home monitoring. So, you know, I've heard some people say, "Wow, that's real easy sentence." And then you talk to somebody that actually is on home monitoring. That's not a real easy sentence, because I mean you can't.
What do they say?
You can't stay. You can't go do anything. No, it's a nice day today when we're out here taping. I mean, it's a beautiful day. It's 83 degrees out, and people want to be outside. Somebody on home monitoring can't go. That's a violation. They can't leave their perimeter. They can't walk around their yard. It's in their residence. So I mean, it's the parameters we set, and when they make those violations and they violate and they break the rules, then now they sit back in jail and they get no privileges. So people got to understand, it's not a free ride. It's a sentence, and a lot of people that I've talked to that have been on home monitoring say sometimes it's nicer to be in jail.
Interesting. I remember well before you were in office, there were so many times where we were discussing this kind of program opportunity and just didn't seem to be getting anywhere. And I really am pleased that we're advancing. I mean, this is something that, especially if we're dealing with overcrowding, when you can maintain public safety, but you can help offenders keep their job so that they don't fall back on the social service roles or the other taxpayer roles, I guess you would say, and to stay involved with the pro-social aspects of the community that are allowed within the system, for example, to get to work or to be with their family if it's a good situation, then we already know that those things are beneficial to reducing recidivism rather than the opposite.
Right. And, you know, the one concern I did hear from some public is saying, well, you know, you're sending these people out, which is a good thing to keep them active. But if the county moves forward in a building, that's going to go bye-bye. And I will tell you this, as long as I'm in office, that will not go bye-bye. Because I feel it's very necessity that people understand that this is not just because of jail overcrowding. This is something that I truly believe in, that people need that chance so that we don't have more tax burden. I mean, the way it sounds, well, they're in jail already, but if we keep them in jail and they lose all this, we're going to end up paying a lot more.
Absolutely,
So.
absolutely. And then what is it when you have, I've learned a few things about recidivism, about offenders, about our justice programs and what evidence-based practices say. And the more that you have people who are low-risk offenders associating with higher-risk offenders, the more you basically lead them to become higher-risk offenders. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like the opposite of good learning.
Right.
Right? You learn the bad ways.
You know, some of the good points that when somebody is incarcerated and they have to go to certain programs. Mm-hmm. For, you know, if you look at the general population in our jail, I'm sure that 70+% have some kind of addiction problem. So when they do things like that and they force them to go to programs, some of it's good, some of it's not. Because as everybody knows, if you're forced to do something, it doesn't always work. It usually is on somebody's on their own, you know, free will that they get their help, and then it seems to be better. So, you know, the programs are still going to be associated with home monitoring. They're still going to have to do these through, you know, ADDIC and certain these other programs that we have out in the community. And that's another aspect I really want to improve on and ramp up in regards to some of the private ones and some of the county-funded programs that we have. You know, start getting some of this more involved with the home monitoring and incarceration. Basically,
it's kind of like you set up these program nets and access points for evidence-based programs. We're not talking about, you know, fluffy programs someplace. We're talking about what the research says works. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's great that we do have a tradition of kind of pressing in that direction as a county, and I'm really glad for all of us. It takes all of us in that justice system as stakeholders to be able to work it through and figure it out. Yeah. So I think that's a nice segue. Let's talk about, since we're talking about jail crowding a little bit here and trying to alleviate that crowding, let's relate that to shipping, if you don't mind. And I know that we had just talked about if there comes to be a new jail in Portage County, if, because there's no done deal in any of this. I know that we're looking at a 200-bed facility, and right now we're shipping, what is it, 40-ish over to Waupaca County right now? Well,
we have a contract for 35 inmates, which we, for the first month in office, have actually made. The last couple of days is 35. Otherwise, it's been over that capacity. Yeah. So, I mean, we do have a contract over there for so many beds, and we do exceed those beds, you know, quite often.
Why don't you tell folks why? I know some of the reasons why, but they may not know.
Well, we have our capacity right now for our jail is 79 beds. We can't ever hold 79 because we can only hold up to 85% being safe, and also by DOC, Department of Corrections guidelines. So
to be able to separate, just to help everybody understand, to be able to separate inmates that shouldn't be co-housed. Yeah. Maybe they have a mental illness of some kind that they're still, you know, being processed through the system. Maybe there are some that are in some sort of a withdrawal mode on something, right. Or maybe they're just too dangerous to be with other people. Yeah. Any number of things.
That in the corrections is called classification. So you have to classify individuals in regards to where they can be placed. And right now, I mean, we struggle with classification in our jail because we don't have the areas for classification. Now,
it's important for folks to know.
Now, prior to January, I looked intensively in regards to remodeling. I thought, you know, taxpayers, I'm a taxpayer, you know, I'm frugal. You can ask anybody in our sheriff's office. When I negotiate, I am very frugal in regards to money. I thought for what I was told, you know, from $2 to $4 million, we could remodel and be able to segregate and things like that. That's not true. Because after looking into this, they're talking between $14 to $20 million, and then we're cutting our bed space down by 10. So that adds on at least 10 to 15 more per month going over to Waupaca County, you know, where our contract is. And we still have not addressed the issue of the safety for the staff and the courts, because the courts would, have to be remodeled, and that remodel cost was, up in the air between 14, so we're talking $40 million for remodeling compared to building something maybe new that would meet those needs and be similar in price. And I said, I can't support a remodel then. I mean, that was my big thing when I looked at it, saying that doesn't make sense taxpayers wise for me as a leader of the sheriff's office to say something that, 18 million to 20 million or whatever it is for the remodel, and cut it down and still not address the safety. So that's when I kind of looked at, okay, I am a proponent of not raising taxes. I've said that all along, and I want to keep my operations budget the same. And I'm able to do that with the new 200, because it takes less people to actually run a pod system than it does the linear jail like we have.
And you've got some folks spread on the road, back and forth, and so on. I mean, when you put your time on that job dedicated to the central operation, I guess I would call it, right, in the vision anyway, of a 200-bed jail in Portage County, and you take the fuel costs and you take the rental costs and so on and the efficiencies and you factor all of that in, I think that's part of what the decision making really hinges on as we move forward.
That's my thinking. The county departments as a whole in regards to the county government building, that's a whole county board issue. My space needs, what I see, the sheriff's office needs, the corrections, the communications, I brought before, the Space and Properties County Board. But it is their decision to say, what is the vision for Portage County, and then bring it forward.
Now, one of the things that folks may not know about when we ship prisoners too is that in Waupaca County, they don't have the kinds of programs. We were just talking about programming to help people move through their issues and hopefully not recidivate again. But in Waupaca County, when we ship them, they don't have a continuation of any of these kinds of programs. And I think that's a pretty important one. I know that a community that has built Justice Works as an example that really stands on building right relationships, right? By shipping them away, they have been removed from healthy relationships. And they've been removed from programmatic relationships that, I'll give you an example of talking with Ken Wolf. He's our social worker. Of course, you know this, but the public may not. Our social worker in the jail, I was talking about the GED and HSED education programs, how people get their diplomas through our jail literacy programs. I knew I'd worked some on that before I was in this office. And it was great to hear that he had graduated a good number of folks recently, and I think that we need to do even more to track those things too, when we can help them get some basic high school diploma under their belts, and they have a greater opportunity for some employment in our community that can be reliable in their future and something to grow on, so they'll be less dependent on other county systems or government systems of support. So I think that's just another couple of key points that folks need to understand. Yeah,
and a lot of people have called me and said, why don't you just, have the court appearances by video, all court appearances? And people don't understand that we can't. I mean, there's only certain ones. We can do some, and we do the majority of ones we can. But those people that are in Waupaca, what we have to do is usually bring them back. And the next day, then bring them back. And if if they're sentenced inmates are sitting over there, they still have hearings. They still have, but then the attorneys have to travel over there. So I mean, it gets to be, I think, more lengthy because people can't communicate back and forth. The attorneys, aren't able to see their clients as much. So I think that is a cost in regards to going back and forth, trying to schedule these inmates for court and transporting them, back and forth. And we are working in regards to, I have some great ideas in regards to video conferencing for courts, But the problem is there are strict guidelines in regards to when it can be. You know, if the inmates don't want, if they can say, no, I don't want it, and that can be the last minute, then all of a sudden we got emergency transport. So, I mean,
Is that by law then? But we also have our other guidelines that we're working on. I know that I've been part of some of those meetings. The Justice Coalition is heading up different kinds of sub-work groups, I guess I would call them, to be able to look at how we can move cases through the court systems more efficiently here in Portage County. And that will then alleviate some of the additional jail bed days that are sort of backed up then because we're not able to move those cases as efficiently.
Yeah, that was one of the initiatives, too, that I thought was important, is that we start something to show the judges, the DAs, the attorneys, okay, if somebody's sitting in there over 90 days, let's notify the attorneys, the DAs, and the judges, because there could be a hang-up. There could be something that just was overlooked. And I think that has improved. We've got that.
Wonderful.
We got a program so that we know when people are in there for over 90 days that we can, you know, start the ball rolling and do things like that. You know, the other thing when we're talking about having inmates here for programming, I mean, the county has taken some big steps in these 4 months that I'm all for. I think it's great that they're looking at a drug and alcohol and vet court kind of thing like that.
Yes.
But if you have these inmates out of county in the initial phase of this,
Right.
that would be
access.
time consuming.
Exactly.
And it might not be feasible. So those are some of the other aspects I looked at when we're thinking about this, saying, okay, how are we going to be able to do this with, you know, trying to classify our inmates, keep the ones that we need here for these programs, but we would never be able to do it because some would be high risk, some would be low risk, and you wouldn't be able to put them all in the same block. So
we have a little less than 5 minutes left in the show, and isn't that great how time flies? And what I wonder is, could we talk about community alerts a little bit, switching gears, and then also some of the other items about how you're doing your law enforcement work around the county that's a little bit different than the way it's been more recently? Yeah.
Community alerts. I've got a lot of calls lately in regards to how am I not getting the alerts for weather, for schools, and I mean, we put out a big message in regards to Facebook and everything through the sheriff's office, but there's still a lot of calls, so I just want everybody to understand that they should go to the Portage County homepage if they're online and sign up for what alerts they're looking for, weather alerts, school alerts. They can go to their schools, and great program because I'm involved with it for, you know, the schools and items like that. And I think that I wanted to get that out, that make sure that they go right as soon as they hit their Portage County homepage, it's sign up on the bottom right of the page.
It used to be called Code Red, and we have a new system in Portage County. If you don't have access to the online registration, just give our office a call and we'll help you get connected with the paper way to do that. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. No, and I think it's a great program to have because you can register your phones, your email, alerts, text, you name it, you can get it all.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about how you're having deputies in our community do their paperwork differently and so on and so forth with the help of municipalities around the county.
When I first got in office, I met with the Towns Association and asked for input in regards to, can we use their town halls, their village halls in regards to substations? And I got an overwhelming support saying absolutely, and we're working through details right now in regards to, you know, how to gain access and some of the logistics. But I mean, this is an opportunity. First of all, years ago we didn't have computers, we didn't have technology in the cars like we have now. But our officers can actually type their reports in their cars, send it via internet right to our substation. Oh,
we get to wrap up here very shortly? Really? So you get to do this all around the county, the bottom line is, to everybody who is listening.
Yep, and we're going to be working on that.
Yeah, and that way folks don't have to drive in and you're able to be more efficient and keep the deputies out in the field. Mm-hmm. Wow, well, I know that was a surprise that I'm getting the wrap-up signal from staff in the studio. Well, you can tell that it's just a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you. It's wonderful to work with you, and I'll look forward to the great things that we can accomplish together for the citizens of Portage County.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.